Up next, we have someone that almost died and had a near-death experience. While in a coma, she experienced what can only be described as the depths of hell. After her tour in hell, years later, went on to write the book about her journey. Misfits in Hell to Heaven Expat, Lessons from a Dark Near-Death Experience, and How to Avoid Hell in the Afterlife. I'd like to welcome Kathy McDaniel to the show. How you doing, Kathy?
Fine. Thank you for having me, Dylan.
Yeah, it's nice to finally have you on, and it was good to chit chat with you a little bit. You know, we've been talking back and forth through email for a while, so it's nice to finally, put a face with the email and the writings back and forth. So when I was preparing for the show, this is something that was really interesting to me. I was like reading your bio, and I was kind of going over some things, and I was like just trying to get some prep work done, and I was like, man, I feel like I've heard this story before. This is so odd. Like as I was reading your bio, and I'm like, man, where have I heard this story? And I couldn't put a finger on it. And then I had realized that I had seen that you had been on Past Lives podcast with Simon Bound. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to pretty much every episode. And then I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's where I heard that podcast. Well, here's the strange thing. There was like I don't know if you want to call it a synchronicity or just something weird that occurred. So actually the day that show released, I was actually walking through the park listening to it on my phone, and it's walking down this trail and like it's through some woods, and there's like this park's got like lots of acreage. So, but there's like one spot in the park where there's these blackberry bushes. And,
Oh, no.
I swear to you, as you were talking about the blackberry bushes in that part of the show, I was walking past the blackberry bushes, and I stopped and I looked at them, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me right now!" And
Oh my gosh. So you could get it, what I was talking about.
Yeah. So I was like studying them as you were talking about how they're thorny, and I was just like, "This is so crazy." And then,
yeah, that's pretty weird.
yeah, and then just here we are now, and like
Oh,
I don't know how long ago that was. That was a while
couple
ago though.
months.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple months later, here you're on
Uh-huh.
my show now, and that's
You
pretty
still won't go
fascinating.
near blackberry bushes,
No,
huh?
no, but I thought that was so cool how that
Yeah,
happened.
that's pretty freaky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. So I guess maybe for the audience, can you just give us an idea maybe of who Kathy was prior to the near-death experience? Like, what is some of your background and stuff like that?
I guess the biggest influence in my life, my dad was in the military. He was in the Navy. So we got moved around every 2.5 to 4 years. So I was always the new kid in school. That's really tough on a kid because, every time you just get a couple friends together and, get in your pecking order, zoop, up you go and off you go. And after a while, I got pretty good at it. Knowing what people like, don't like, kind of a chameleon sort of thing, and how to fit in. But on the good side too, I could kind of reinvent myself every time I went someplace. If this persona didn't quite work out, then I could change the game. And it wasn't so much a game as trying to grow up by myself without the companionship of friends. And so that was tough on me. I think I'm a gypsy at heart anyway, so I got into this moving thing and changing thing. So my whole life, I've been very comfortable with change. And whether it's relationships or jobs or whatever, I think that sets me apart from my other friends now, who've been married for 57 years or whatever. And my longest of 3 marriages was 11, so there was a lot of, so that's one thing I think that hit me. Another was being raised cradle Catholic. My dad, as you know from the book, had a pretty come to Jesus when he was in the World War II, and God got him out of well, he should have died, but he got him out, and my father promised we'd all be Catholics. So that was the only probably stability in my life, is no matter where I went, and what church we went to, there was always that same basic principles, guidelines, rules, always in Catholic schools, always had the nuns and the priests. So that was another thing, that it was almost like this glass bowl over the top of this person that's kind of, all over the map. So there was a kind of, there's always a fight, I think, sometime in my life, whether trying to believe what I believed. And you've got this show about reality, what's real for me, So I went through life bumping and doing the best I could. And I'm a nice person. Not everybody would agree with that, but I'm an opinionated person. I ran my own businesses. I don't play well with others when it comes to jobs. I know better how to do this. And so if they just turn me loose, I do a good job. So in one of these places in my 50s, I'd just gotten out of a relationship. I got it. My business is up and running. My kids are off at college. Finally, maybe I can get something for me. I mean, being a single mom and raising two kids, that was tough. Being a married mom with two stepkids and two kids, that was the worst I ever did. So this was going to be a good time in my life. I had just sold my business. I was 50 and retired. I didn't have bunches of money, but I could get by. And then my friend got sick. He was actually my fiance. We'd broken up and kind of moved on a little bit, but he got cancer. And he needed a caregiver to go with him to Seattle because he needed two caregivers. And this other woman he met in an elevator that got him to marry him was the other caregiver. So we went for supposed to be 3 to 5 months up to Seattle. I had no idea what I was getting into. I was not a nurse. I'd raised two kids, but and a dog, but that's my background. And so it turned into a real stretch for me to just totally give up my whole life for someone who I really loved. I wish we could have stayed together, but his job took him to the East Coast. Mine was on the West Coast, and our jobs were very important to us. So here we are, but as the months ran by, he would be up, he'd be down, we'd be up in the middle of the night, we'd run into the hospital, we'd be taking shift. I'd be walking home in Seattle in the morning by myself in the dark, and she's passing me going the other way when we're taking shifts to take care of them. And we used to laugh about pity the poor mugger or drug addict that tried to attack us because we were mad, we were tired, we were hungry, and you shouldn't mess with us. And we never did get messed with. But he died, and I just never, in my wildest dreams, he was 53, could imagine him dying. So after this, my health went to hell in a handbasket, and long story short, I ended up in a dock in the box with a guy that I was dating. He got up in the middle of the night to take me down there, and I just felt the life just kind of pouring from my head, coming on down through my chest. I was in the car. He was trying to find a parking place. And I thought, oh my God, I'm dying. And so I said, stop, I'm dying. And it sounded like I was shouting, but I was just whispering. So I started to open the car door. He slams on the brakes, gets out. I passed out. He carried me inside, no pulse. They called an ambulance, took me to the hospital in Bremerton, which is quite a ways away. And it was New Year's Eve, and it was the 28th when this happened. And I thought, what? It's New Year's Eve? And then a couple of people were there, and my mom and dad, but they were in California, and I was in Washington. I couldn't get it. I was in this tent, they were trying to keep me ventilated, and I'd gone from the flu, terrible flu, to pneumonia. And now I was going into lung failure. So I just remember somebody saying, we have to do this. She can't breathe. And so they threw everybody out of the room, and my dad gave me a thumbs up, and that's all I remember. they trached me, still got my lovely scar, and put me in a coma, drug-induced coma on a ventilator for 3 weeks while I kind of struggled back and forth physically between living and dying. They gave me a 30% chance of survival. Later on, a couple of weeks later, they said to my folks, she's not going to make it. You better say goodbye. And the weird thing looking back was the doctors had told my parents that they gave me white amnesia, this sort of anesthetic. They said, she's going to be uncomfortable. She's going to want to pull the trach out. She's going to be laying for a long time. We have to give her this so she will not remember a thing. She won't, she's just like in black. She won't remember, she can't remember anything. So later on, when I had recovered from my experience, when I woke up in this very dark place, I'm telling you, you have this one reality living here on earth, and we think we know what it is. And we can touch things, we can hear things, we can feel things. But I'm just going to read you. You probably heard the story. I woke up on the other side, what that felt like. I didn't feel dead. Only confused heat, acrid fog, muffled moans, and ungodly shrieks. This can't be good. Something was staring at me. Like a blow, a voice thundered, "Do you know where you are?" My mind raced, searching for some rational explanation, but part of me already knew. "Hell?" I whispered. To my horror, the answer was an ear-splitting maniacal laugh. The evil crept closer as I clamped shaking hands over my ears. Panic surged in me, triggering the requirement for fight or flight. Fighting was not an option. I turned and ran. So that was my new reality. And of course, as you know, having read the book, it got worse after that. Everything was very unreal is the word you want to use, but having been back for 20 years from that experience, it was the most real thing I experienced. It was endless and horrible and frightening and confusing. And as I went through this, what seemed like years in this horrible place with the demons and their just desire to make you as miserable mentally, physically, emotionally as possible. And the whole time I was there, I didn't know I was dead. I mean, the thing that I've found out is what's real is this consciousness or the spirit that is inside of each of us. Our bodies are just like a car. We get in this car and we drive around and we get through life. But when this car is through, every bit of our consciousness is still us. We don't change a bit. So that's my reality now. I know for a fact that I'm going to exist forever. And so it really changes things in this reality. Number one, I don't fear death anymore, because once I got out of that place and got to heaven, and I did, and I saw my friend who had died, and he looked great. He looked younger and he was laughing. And the last time I had seen him, of course, he died of leukemia. So he was hairless and lumpy and purple and so sick. And so in my mind, again, not knowing I was dead, I just was all of a sudden super happy, super joyful, feeling great, looking at my friend. And I thought, oh my God, he doesn't know he's dead. And he just laughed. And I thought, oh, crud. If he's dead, then I'm dead. And I'm kind of looking around and I don't even remember seeing anything other than him. It wasn't like I looked at fingers or toes or anything. I just knew it was me. And so he said, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, no, I'm not leaving here. Are you out of your mind? And boom, I had to make my way back, and then woke up in that horrible CCU unit with, on a ventilator and unable to move and weighing 86 pounds and all these people that I kind of remembered. And that was just the beginning of the horrible physical rehab that I had to go through. So,
Now, you said
and,
that it seemed like years there. And
yeah,
how long was it? Was it like 3 weeks? That wasn't it? Like,
I was in the coma for 3 weeks, but what you learn too, I became an IANS member, International Association in Near-Death Studies. There are thousands of people in this world right now who have had near-death experiences. And it was just life saving for me to find these people, because nobody wanted to hear about it. My family didn't want to, you're a good Catholic girl. What the hell were you doing in hell? It's like, I don't know. I wasn't that bad. There was shame. There was fear. I was so scared for a while that I was going to die right again and go back to hell. I mean, I was a mess. So to find the IANS people and to finally understand over years of reading that my experience in hell was really a blessing, that I learned a lot. I saw a couple people there that were alive that I had to give messages to about changing their lives. I learned a lot, including the fact that, and I believe this, the reality is I made my own hell, because in experiencing God, just like our little catechisms taught us in first grade, what is God? God is love, period. Where is God? God is everywhere. Those 5 words sum it all up. I mean, that's just the truth. And so, yeah, my life changed a lot.
did you feel like you had a better understanding of God when you were there?
You just experience God. I know you are God. Everybody's just a little piece of God. We're spirit. We're all this big love spirit, and now a lot of people say, and I believe it now, that we choose to come down to earth and learn things, and have experiences with other soul mates up in heaven. We just we decide to come down and have these synchronicities you're talking about. Anytime something like that happens, it usually means you knew that person before, and it was just something you decided, say, I'm going to tag in on you, 2020, and we'll just know it was us. That's all we're going to do. Whereas
Right.
other people in our lives, like your children or your parents or whatever, those you all chose, and you got this big plan together, and I'm going to learn this and I'm going to learn that. The great thing that comes from that is I no longer feel like a victim. I mean, you read my book. I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life, probably a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
you have.
And and sometimes I'd say, God, why me? Why do you keep picking on me? I'm not that bad a person. Why is this happening? But when I turn that all around and say, hey, I chose that. I chose to lose that baby when she was that little, and she chose to only come down for 2 days and 9 months, and because she wanted to be part of my life. And what did I learn from that? It's always, what did I learn from that? And sometimes I say, what was I thinking? That I chose this lesson, but it just forces me to look deeper into it and say, wow, you get a little distance and you go, if that wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. And this was a good thing. So if you look at your whole life again very differently, and at other people differently, instead of being judgmental, which, people who have a little bit of an esteem problem, which I did growing up the way I did, my way of feeling better was to kind of put somebody else down. And I did that with humor, but it wasn't really nice humor sometimes. Girls can be very naughty girls. And so that I've learned to say, wow, that person's really bugging me. I wonder what the lesson is on that. I wonder how we were really connected in heaven. Are we going to have a really good laugh about this later? I have this vision of us, all of us in my soul group, meeting up at some really nice bar in heaven. We're going to sit around with drinks and hors d'oeuvres and just chuckle over this entire lifetime. It's going to be fine. It's all going to be fine.
That's fascinating. And did you, this is interesting that this is coming from a Catholic, by the way. But did you, what do you think this place of hell was that you went to? Do you think it's something that you kind of manifested or created, like your own vision of what you expected, or is it like an actual place of hell?
Yes, both. I think you hit it right on the head. It took me a very long time to realize that God is love. You can't make him angry. You can't, he doesn't judge you. So that only left me. And I lived and died, breathed, and really believed that if I did this, I would spend 300 days in purgatory. But if I said a rosary, I could subtract 255 days. But then if it was a math problem. My whole life was a math problem. And I got the columns a little skewed. But I accepted that. I signed the line, that I would live my life that way. And so what should I expect? I made that hell for myself. And in retrospect, I can see that a lot of the things that happened to me there were things that had happened to me on earth in a metaphorical sense, and that I had to work out there. And how I got out of hell was great too. And the thing I want to just get the message out is you do not have to go to hell. I chose to go to hell by believing that crap. And people that take little children and say, don't hit your sister, God will cry, or God will, don't do that. God loves us all no matter what. We're the ones with the judgment. The other thing I like about the IONS group is most of those people had life reviews. I wasn't there long enough. I didn't get a ticket for one, but they're supposed to be wonderful. Very non-judgmental. Generally, you got a couple angels, guides, what the heck, somebody nice hanging around, putting their arm over your shoulder saying, this is going to be great. And it's like, they describe it all different ways, but it's like a 360-degree snapshots of your life, every single second of your life. And you get to see how you were a pleasant person, an unpleasant person, selfish, generous, whatever. And then they flip it around and you get to feel every nice thing you ever did to somebody, every bad thing you ever did. So the judgment is just your understanding of how your life affected other people. And sometimes, you kind of think, ooh, I could have done a little better there. Or, wow, I had no idea that was going to be such a good thing in that person's life, just to give them a smile or whatever. So it makes you think a lot about what you do with your life.
Yeah, and a lot of those people that come back from the near-death experiences, they either have like enhanced abilities or just have a better sense of what their purpose is. Did you have anything like that happen to you after you came out of the coma, like a sense of purpose or anything like
No,
that?
I was just mad. I didn't want to be there, man. I wanted to be in heaven. I mean, I could hear the doctor say things like, we don't know how brain damaged she is. We're not sure she'll ever have another job or if she'll be able to live on her own. And I literally had all my muscle memory was gone. So I literally had to learn how to swallow, how to eat, how to crawl, how to walk, how to button a button, everything, just like a child. It took 2 months, and then, so no, I was not happy. I was not happy to be back. But as I got into IONS and some of the weird things that were happening in my life, like kind of understanding what people were going to say before they said it, or maybe they didn't say it, and I would just say, gosh, what happened to you today? That, I thought, oh, well. And the really cool one is on airplanes. I I was seeing my folks every month for about 3 years before this happened. They're in their 90s. And I'd get on an airplane, and about 8 out of 10 times, either on the way down or the way back, I'd get this sense in the waiting area before getting on the plane, and I was reading my book or looking at my stuff. I'd hear this person's voice. Usually they were annoying. They were annoying somebody about this, or they were annoying. There was something, and I thought, oh dear God, don't let me sit next to them on the plane. Every single time they'd come down the aisle and they'd look up, and I go, no, not again. And they'd sit down right there. So I'm real good about on a plane. I put my Kindle right up in my face, and I don't want to talk to anybody. And 8 out of 10 times, that person would just say, hi, how are you? What were you here for? And I think, well, after a while, because it got to be so prevalent, I just say, oh, why are you on your flight? Oh, my mom died, or oh, my son, oh, and I'd have 2 hours to just listen to this person and then just say, oh, well, you know what? I'm really sorry you lost your mom. I really am, but God, she is so happy. I was in heaven about 4 years ago. What? You were what? You were what? And I would just, they'd get off the plane. They'd give me their phone number. We've got to stay in touch. Give me a hug. They'd introduce me to their husband, picking them up it was just delightful. So it's that kind of thing that I was sent back, is to just give one person at a time a little hope. I also worked for hospice for a couple of years because I wanted to be around dead people. I was so jealous, that they were going home, and it was weird, but I've heard that from a lot of people who come back. And I had one little girl, and I don't know, girl, she was probably in her 40s, and her husband and mom's dying, and she's just, we'll never see her again. I just know I'll never see her. I just said, well, no, that's not true. I've been there, and this is what's happened. She will be with you. I mean, they're spirits. They can go anywhere they want. And she said to her husband, Frank, we're going to see mom again. And this lady was dead. It got a little weird sometimes, but it turned out to be, like I say, a good thing. And I just know that when I get everything done, I get to go home. But it's been 20 years, and it's like, man, that must have been a list. He told me there'd be a lot. So I'm thinking maybe this thing with the podcasts and getting the book out there, get the message out, and I get to go home.
Go home.
Oh, dude.
That's a wonderful way to look at
it. In the book, well, how to stay out of hell. I'll just give you this one before we close up. But I really didn't want to go there again. I didn't want to make another hell. I just, I kept praying about that. And it took years and years and years. And I'd get a word now and then just pop in my head. And then over about a 3 or 4 month period, I got these words that wouldn't go away, and they would come back in my head in sequential order. And, I'm getting in my 70s, and so I forget things. And so the fact that it was burned into my brain made some sense to me. But I was told, if you never want to go to hell, you want to live a good life. And all these things make everybody else's life good too. And they're kind of trite, but they're true. We have to be loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. Now, people always say useful. What's up with the useful? It took me a while to kind of figure that one out. And then into my head came one time, hey, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And especially this year, that makes a lot of sense. So I just say that every morning when I get up, dear God, help me to be. And you don't always hit them all, but if you know there's something in your life like the non-judgmental you need to work on, it's just a positive thing. It doesn't hurt anybody, and it helps people. So I think if everybody, if half the people, if a quarter of them, 10% of the people would think of those things in the morning, how much easier and more loving the world this would be. So that was my message, I guess.
Oh, those are wonderful words spoken. To write the book, I mean, was there something that like drove you to write it or to share the story? Or, what was it about it that inspired you to to push through that book?
When I got back from the hospital, I had a lot of time on my hands with recovery, and I was haunted actually still by the memories of hell, and it was very fresh, and it was very difficult for me to sleep. I was afraid to close my eyes and have them drag me back. It was a real terror. So I thought if I could maybe put it on paper and spell it out on paper and get it out of my brain, maybe that would work. And so I would write, and I'd write for hours, papers and papers, and I didn't really want anybody else to read it. It was just for my own catharsis, and after a while, maybe it helped a little bit and I could put it in a folder and stick it away. And then something would happen again, and it would come back. So it took 10 years probably for me to get to the IONS meetings. And that was through a whole bunch of synchronicities. And finally, when I found out that there were other people that had the dark ones, that's what they call them, a dark NDE. About 1 in 5 are dark or distressing. They don't call them bad because you learn that they're not bad. They're just a different way of um, giving you lessons. It's kind of like in the ancient Greek mythology when the hero would go down into hell to save his lady love and bring her back up into the light. It was about epic journey. It was I was told for the strong that could get through and bring these messages back that people needed to hear. So it made me feel more like a heroine than a really bad person. And so then people kept saying, my God, you have got to write this down. I told my story at a couple of the meetings, and people were on the edge of their seats. And then at the end, when I got out, everybody clapped, and it was great. So I thought, something good is coming out of that, because a lot of people are afraid to die. They're afraid either there's nothing, or there's something really bad, or maybe there's something good, but maybe they don't deserve it. So that's I continued writing it, and I was at the last IONS conference before they shut us down. We couldn't go this year, and there was this little lady with a cardboard table with a bunch of flyers that said, "Do you need to write your book?" And for the 3 days I was there, I kept walking by her booth real fast. And they were closing up, I was walking by her booth one more time when she was putting everything in a box. And she says, "Do you need to write a book?" And I says, "Well, that's what they tell me." She says, "Good. I just started my own publishing company. Would you be my first client?"
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And then she kind of rode me hard because I was the only client she had.
That's a
And she started
synchronicity if
out
I
by
don't know one.
she told me that I had to write about 10,000 words. And I thought, oh, God, that's a lot of words. So I labored over that, just telling the hell story. And then she says, well, no, you have to tell what it was like before in your life and then what you were like after. And I didn't say 10,000. I said 40,000. And I said, what? I says, no, there's no way. So I sat down, and that's when the miracle kind of started. Um, I just sat in front of the typewriter, just staring at it, thinking, where do I even start when somebody says, start with your family? And I thought, well, all these stories started falling into my head through me and onto the keyboard. I would remember, oh, I remember the time at grandma's house, this happened. Or, oh, I remember he was an alcoholic, but we didn't talk about that. And oh my gosh, then this happened. And the stories, it became fun. I would literally wake up in the middle of the night with these stories, like my grandmother saying, now don't forget the time. And so I went way back to my grandparents on both sides, came up to my family, my own family going forward, and then up to the time I was, sick. And then it just started filling up. And finally I got to 40,000, and she said, oh, I just talked to the people that are going to edit and put it in whatever. You need 50,000 words. I says, I'm not falling for that again. She says, no, I really do. So that's when I added the last part of the chapter, which was, well, as they say, it's just really the good news and how to incorporate everything. And I went past the 50 into 60,000 and I said, okay, that's it. But it turned out just perfect. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And your family's had some, paranormal experiences, haven't they? You talked about your father during the war, and then, your sister, even with was it your brother, Junior?
yeah, my brother, well, he chose an interesting life. He was just a doll, but alcoholism does bad things to you. And the fact that at his funeral, he was only 53, I think, he pretty much tried to drive everybody away, his family, his own family, his children. He was in rehab all the time. He went to I don't know how many meetings, and then he'd fall off the wagon. But at his funeral, we got the smallest room we could, and it was still going to be way too big for just the immediate family and a few friends. I got there and there was standing room only. The place was mobbed. We were all looking around, and I had to step back and look and make sure I was in the right room. And I went and sat by my parents. They had saved a seat for me in the front. They said, "What the heck's going on?" I said, "I don't know." So once the priest had given his little sermon thing there, and my brother had a great sense of humor, they said, "Does anybody want to speak?" Well, all these kids, from, I don't know, teenagers to young adults were lined up all the way to the back of the room. And each one got up and says, "I was in AA and I met him there and he saved my life. He took me, I OD'd and he took me to the hospital, or, he called me in the, whatever, all these people." And we thought that his life had been a total waste. And here, because of the life he chose, he helped so many people, that only could have benefited from him. So anyway, my sister was devoted to my brother, and was always trying to save him from himself. And last time I saw him, he had said to me, they keep family keeps trying to save me. I just want to die. He says, this life is just so horrible. I can't take it anymore. And I had told him, there, I, I know somebody that killed themselves, and it's it's not recommended. I says it's recommended that, Doug, if next time you feel yourself really, really sick, just go someplace, get a nice safe place, friend's house or something, and just let yourself go, you know. So that's what he did. A couple weeks later, he knew he was having he was he had esophageal bleeding, and he knew he was not going to make it, but he did not want to go back to the hospital. They threw him in rehab, and he hated it. So he just went, and I heard about it. My sister called up hysterical. If only she'd been there, she could have saved him. And I says, no, he wanted to go. He wanted to go home. He's happier there. So it wasn't too long after that. I can't remember the time period. It was less than a month, where she called me, because I live a couple states away. And she says, "Oh my God, I saw our brother." And I said, "You dreamt about him, huh?" She says, "No, I saw him." And I says, now, what are you talking about?" She says, "Well, I was driving the car and my Christian radio station on high, like I always do, and I had the window rolled down. And I came to a stop sign, and something caught my eye. This guy ran out from between these hedges and around the front of the car. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to get hijacked. And it was him. And he stuck his face near me, but he didn't touch the car or anything. And she says, I just jumped and screamed his name and put my hands over my chest and says, "Oh my God, you're alive." And he says, "No, but I wanted you to know that I'm really doing well. I'm okay. Don't worry about me." And she said, before I could do anything else, he just smiled and ran across the front of the car and back into the hedge again. And I just had to call you. So yeah, that was cool. My parents felt a lot better after that.
That is cool. That is
hmm
cool. Now, have you had any experiences with your brother or with anybody that you know that's passed?
Um, I see them in dreams. I had it feels, I know it's not a dream, but twice when I've been sleeping. One was a really good friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I had dated his best friend, so I hadn't seen him in a long time, and he had had cancer before, but the last day I saw him, he was
5 years clean, and he was going in for his checkup to get the okay. And that's the last time I saw him. We had lunch, and he'd always loved gardens and stuff. And he was a good friend. Good friend. I loved him. And oh gosh, it was about a month or two after I got home from the hospital, I had a dream about him. He wasn't, a religious person, and but he was such a good person. And one time he had told me, he wouldn't go to heaven because God couldn't love him. He was just not worthy. And I said, "Oh my God, if we all love you, God can love you." Well, he showed up, and what I thought, well, it wasn't a dream. I was in a garden, a beautiful, beautiful garden, having that heaven feeling like I talk about when you're in heaven. It's just a feeling. It cannot be expressed with words. And we were walking through this wonderful garden, and he was showing me all these things. And I was so happy to be there again. And I just knew, I didn't know at the time it was heaven, but that's what it felt like. And so I was newly married, and my husband heard me moaning in my sleep, and he woke me up. And I said, "No, no, don't do that. The heaven feeling is going away." And he says, "What are you talking about?" And I says, "I was just with my friend, and he's in heaven." And he says, "Well, you just had a dream." Well, 2 days later, one of our mutual friends called and said he died 2 days ago. And she says, "I knew you would not know that." And I says, "Oh, I knew it. He came to see me in a dream, and he did." So that was great. I love that. And then I see my friend that I have seen in heaven. I've seen him several times, and he comes in dreams, and I get the heaven feeling. Usually times when I'm kind of low, and just saving me a place.
That's wonderful. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion. Kathy, where can we find your book? Where can we get a hold of the work that you're doing?
Well, the book is on Amazon. That's probably the easiest and cheapest way to get it. And it's called Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. And it's got a lot of humor in it. That's the way I got through life, my whole family. If you don't have your sense of humor and your faith, hang it up. So it's not a downer book. Some people are afraid to read it. The hell part is only a few chapters, and it is pretty bad. But the rest of the book is on a positive note.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.